Hi again, folks. Welcome back to Sci-Fi Scavenger, my booktube channel. Tonight I'm going to do the next instalment, third instalment of the retrospective book haul, so catching up on books that I've acquired in the last 4 to 6 weeks after starting my scavenging obsession. So tonight we're going to do a shelf. You can see this one here is empty, barring a couple of books which are I already owned, but the rest of what was crammed on that shelf, plus a little bit from this shelf here, were bought in various charity shops and a couple of second-hand bookshops. So we'll quickly run through them. Some of it's fantasy, most of it's science fiction. I do mainly read science fiction, but I do sometimes stray across the border into fantasy land. So we'll start with these. So this is book 3 of the, what's it called? Saga of the Exiles by Julian May. I've never actually read these. I think I owned one of them when I was younger that I later sold in a batch of books that I flogged for not much money for beer when I was a student. So I never read it, but I seem to be acquiring these in reverse order. So I've got book 3 and book 4. That's the adversary, but not book 1 and book 2, so I'm sure they'll turn up. They seem to be something that people ditch from time to time. So I'll get those. And continuing on that theme, in Fantasyland still, I picked up this Stephen Donaldson short stories book, Daughter of Regals, which has got, I don't know, let's see if I can tell, 2, 4, 6, 7 shortish stories / maybe short novellas. In it, it's actually in really good condition. There's no crease on the spine. The cover's in good nick. Pages aren't too faded around the edges. It is for what it's worth, first edition paperback. So I'm interested to read that. Short stories are cool sometimes. And then I got these in one place in the Oxfam bookshop in Henley, which is not far from where I live. And so it's books 2 and 3 from the First Chronicles of Thomas Covenant, and then books 1, 2, and 3 of the Second Chronicles of Thomas Covenant. Again, books that I owned when I was in my teens and early 20s that I stupidly got rid of. That I've now reacquired for the princely sum of £1.99 each. I like the covers on these. They're a good set. And then so I was missing the first one of the First Chronicles, and sort of trusting in the process that it would eventually show up, and indeed it did. Interestingly, so that's the first one, Lord Foulsbane, which I bought, I think, in Scuba Books in central London, so it was a bit more expensive than my usual fare, £4.50. Good lord. But it's a first edition UK paperback, and you can tell that, well, because it says so in the inside, but also because, unlike the others, well, that one's got a number on it, number 2 in this case. This one, because it was the first one, it doesn't have a number on it. So it's a bit like the British stamps that have the Queen's head on them. They don't have to have a number, country on them, because everyone knows that they're UK stamps. But so that one is the first one. It's in pretty good condition. The colour on the covers is good, so I'm pretty happy with those. And I read them all way back when. I really enjoyed them at the time, I think. I gather this series has sort of been a little bit cancelled or semi-cancelled because there's an unfortunate scene in the first book which I couldn't remember. I had to Google it the other day. But in general, my memory of the series is a positive one, and I in a parallel universe where I have the time, I will at some point read it. So anyway, those are I'm quite happy to have those. Whoops. Butterfingers, quite happy to have those on the shelves again. So what we got next? A few Asimovs. So I've got a bunch. So on this shelf from here to here is Asimov's that I've owned since I was in my teens. I didn't flog those for beer. I decided to keep those. Some of them were lent to me on a permanent basis, it turned out, by my aunt. And she's never asked for them back, and I've never offered them back, but that was probably 40 years ago. I think she'll have forgotten. So all of the short story books that are on the shelf came from her, the ones from the late 60s and 70s, and then the others, Foundation and the Robot Elijah Bailey books were ones that I bought. But anyway, I found in really good condition in the sort of Panther science fiction edition. This one is from, well, I would guess the early 1970s. Let's see. Yeah, it's a reprint. So originally published in 1958, so a long time ago. This one's from 1971, so it's as old as I am, 52 years old. And it's in pretty much pristine condition. Obviously the pages are they've got that old book smell, and the edges are actually not too bad. I mean, you know, they're not that I'm an expert in conditioning, but I reckon that's probably it's definitely a good. I think it was very good actually. There's no creasing on the spine. The cover's in good nick. There's no dings on it. Happy days. So what I hadn't realised, although I'd heard of it, what I hadn't realised is it's effectively a prequel to the Elijah Bailey detectives books. So it's got Elijah Bailey, plainclothesman, is the main character in this as well. So that'll go next to those. And then I've got, what else have I got? Currents of Space, which I already have. So it's one of the ones I've got up there behind my head. But it's that version is in pretty crappy state. It's very dinged on the cover. The spine's creased and bits of the cover are missing. So I will retire that one at some point. This one's in pretty much perfect condition. Nice Chris Foss cover. So I'm very happy to have that. And then there's this one. This one is not in especially good condition. I would say it's probably good, officially good with a capital G condition. It's got some signs of wear. There's a bit dinged, some dog-eared bits on the cover look, and the spine's okay. The pages are it's just less tidy than the other two that I just said. This one is from 1970, and I think that this is a UK first edition. Obviously it's a paperback, but UK first edition. It's got, I don't know, about a dozen short stories in it. This is the second one. There is another one that I don't have, so I'll be on the lookout for that. It's got the same funny face on the cover, the first one, but it's black, I think. And then my last Asimov of this bunch, I think, another Panther science fiction formats, Asimov's Mysteries, which are again more short stories. Again, it's in really good condition. Maybe a couple of scuffs on the top of the spine. You can see that look there, but nothing dreadful. And it is short stories, but it's kind of like his Sherlock Holmes in space. It's detective stories, I think, but set in a space setting. I gather. I've not read that one, so I shall get stuck into that at some point. The good news with the short stories, you can bash those out pretty fast because they rock along quite nicely. So that's all the Asimovs for now. The next three are all Peter F. Hamilton, not quite in the squirrel killer category, but not far off. They are Fallen Dragon, which is a standalone novel. It's in pretty much as new condition. There's no creasing on the spine. The pages look like they're all in good condition. I paid £1.99 for this in an Oxfam shop. I forget which one. Might have been the Oxfam bookshop in Henley. And you know, again, I don't get too excited about the edition of paperbacks, but it is a UK first edition paperback, so whoopee for me. I've not read that one, so happy to have it. Again, this is also in fab condition. Second Chance at Eden, which I think is a standalone. Actually, it's short stories, well, shortish, six stories. I don't know if you would call them short novellas or long short stories. I don't know. where the boundary lies in those definitions. But again, it's in really good condition. It's bright. There's no creasing on the spine. It is very few, a couple of light scuffs on the kind of edge of the cover there, but not so as you notice. Again, $1.99 in an Oxfam. It is a UK first edition paperback. I could be a millionaire. And the final one is Misspent Youth, which I think is set in the same universe as one of the big series. And I can never remember if it's the Commonwealth or the Confederation, but it's set quite far in the history of those settings, back when sort of longevity treatments were just being developed. So I think that's the premise of it. Again, I haven't read it, but I like a bit of Peter F. Hamilton. I'd really like to get, actually I got some today, others of his books which will feature in a later haul video, which again I picked up for £2 each in the Oxfam in Richmond. I'd really like to get hold of the Greg Mandel trilogy, the first books that he wrote way back when. Partly because I'd just like to have them from a completist point of view, but also I really liked those. I thought they were great. So what have we got next? I don't know, this strictly speaking counts as science fiction, but fuck, it's got talking dogs, so science fantasy maybe. It's Plague Dogs by Richard Adams, which I have read, but a long, probably when I was a teenager, so like a ridiculous amount of time ago, and I only have a vague recollection of what it's about. If I remember, what it says on the back: 2 dogs escape from an experimental research station in the Lake District, blah blah blah. But I recall that being more impactful than Warship Down when I read it at the time, so I'm looking forward to getting stuck into that one. What else have we got here? Terry Pratchett's collab with Stephen Baxter, which is the first one of the long series, of which there were several. I quite like this one, but I found that they tailed off after a while, sort of basically repeating the same essential story. The premise for this is, if you haven't read it, is that there are parallel worlds and we can now get to them, and there are resources available, and there are usual scraps over who gets the oil and who gets to exploit those and what have you. But I recall being quite pleased with the concept and the way that this one was executed, but after that I felt like they were kind of phoning them in. Next one, I'm intrigued by. I'm looking forward to reading that. I don't know if you can see that. Yeah, so this one's Chris Brookmeyer, who writes normally earthbound kind of detective, murder mystery, police procedural type stuff. I think one or two of which I've read. But this one is set in as the cover suggests, in a orbiting space station, city in the sky, and the main character is a lady, Alice Blake, who's a top of the class investigator, apparently, who's sent up to try to untangle the murder of after a mutilated body is found. So I think the science fiction aspect of it is more of a plot device than the core of it, but that should be interesting. Next up is among the many books that I got rid of when I was in my 20s, much to my current chagrin, was Raymond D. Feist's Magician series. So I managed to pick this up in a charity shop. It's not quite the same edition as mine. I remember mine being blue. This is purple, but I think it's the same picture. And then I was pleased when I thought I'd found the second one, Darkness at Sethanon, until I was reminded later on that that's actually the third. So that's the denouement of a trilogy, and it's missing. I can never remember what the second one's called, but it's called Silverpawn. And I recall at the time disliking that one, or at least not liking it as much as the first and the third one. But anyway, when the second one appears, as it inevitably will, I'll add that to the shelves, and I'll be pleased to have them back in their place. The last three for this time around are ones that I've read. Well, actually, I've certainly read one or two of them. I went through a phase some years back of I'm afraid, possibly illicitly, allegedly, getting hold of knocked off ebooks via various means, and reading them on my Kindle, which was my pride and joy at the time. And among the many books that I had via that route were Stephen Donaldson's Gap Cycle. And the problem with them was, although I really enjoyed the first one, that was okay. The others, 2, 3, 4 and 5, were terrible format ebooks, and they were really hard to read. They had bugs in the conversion, and there were pages and pages where there was only one word or one word's width of words. It was really hard to read, and I gave up. I think partway through the second one, maybe. Certainly, I didn't finish it all. So I have the first one. It's of the three that I've got, this is the one in the shittiest condition. It's pretty well worn. So at some point, I'd like to upgrade it for a neater copy, but this will do for now. And then we've got book 2, which is Gap into Vision, Forbidden Knowledge, which is the next one in the cycle, which is in much nicer condition. It's a little bit creased on the spine, but otherwise it's in good nick. Again, £1.99, probably in an Oxfam. I seem to get a better quality of haul in Oxfam. The others are a bit more hit and miss. I don't know why that is. Maybe people just prefer Oxfam. But again, another UK first edition, big wow, first back, paperback. And then the final one is the fourth in the series. So I've got 1 and 2. I'm missing 3, but I've got 4. And then I think there's a fifth. I'm pretty sure there's a fifth book in the series, which isn't mentioned in this one because it's a UK first edition, and the fifth one wasn't written at the time this was published, so it's not in there. I don't know what that one's called. But this is the fourth one, A Gap into Madness, A Gap into Chaos and Order, which again is actually in nearly perfect condition. I would describe it as very good. It's got some minor dings on the corners of the spine, just over there, look. But otherwise the cover's shiny. It's the spine is got some little creases at the bottom there, but otherwise it's in tip-top condition. Very happy to have that back in my legitimately in an actual book, an asset that I own, even if I didn't pay full whack for it, in the library. So that's the last of this haul. I hope you enjoyed that, and if you did, please hit the like button and subscribe, and you will hopefully you'll come back for the next one. I hope the sound on this one was better than the first two. I do have a little cheapo mic here. I will, if I carry on doing this, I'll upgrade the hardware at some point, but we're just figuring stuff out. So that's it for now. Goodbye, and I'll be back soon.